Coming up on Film World Community, it's the long-awaited interview with Dave Knop from the Knoptop YouTube channel and my movie suggestion of the week. Hey guys, welcome to Film World Community. That's right, we have our interview with Dave Knop. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you guys because it was a blast to do. We had a great time talking through the whole interview. And so for this episode of Film World Community, we're not going to be doing answering a bunch of questions and stuff like that because this interview actually took up a good bit of time and I cut it down as good as I could, but it was just full of so much great stuff that I couldn't cut out too much. So we're just going to jump straight into the interview, and then at the end I'll have my movie suggestion of the week. So here we go. That's right, guys. I am joined here by the one and only Dave Knop from the Knoptop YouTube channel and other areas on social media to include Free Time Filmmaker. So how's it going, Dave? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, pretty good. How are you doing?
So let's just start off with some questions here. Starting off with our very first one, which is when did you first start filmmaking and video-related production?
Thinking back. It's funny to think way back because we didn't have a video camera. And when I think of some of the filmmaking I did, I was going way back. And my neighbor had an audio cassette recorder. And so we would make audio movies. This was years ago. There was a few audio things. I think, trying to think here. I don't know if you'd be familiar with Cheech and Chong, but they had an audio like album. It was a comedy album and it was just a bunch of weird stories. Adam Sandler later did one years later, and there's some other comedians and stuff that have had them, so they've been around. But for being a kid, it was like, we can make all of the sound effects. So we would act like we're walking in the park and we'd just be crunching leaves. So it was almost like, without knowing the words, I was learning like Foley and stuff like that. But that would have been, that was back, I would probably say about, I don't know, 20 plus years ago. So it was a while ago. And then it slowly led into video making once my parents actually got us a video camera. And that's where I was like, whoa, I'm going to be a stunt man. Except I had no coordination. So yeah, it was about probably middle school to high school is when I started really getting into it. VHS, that was my go-to format back then.
Well, excellent. So that really does it for the first question. Let's move on to how long, kind of relating to that as well, is kind of the same sort of question. How long have you been posting to YouTube? Was Knoptop your first channel?
Yeah, it was my only channel that I ever really had starting out, and I didn't know what to do with it. My buddy said, hey, you need to check out this channel. You can upload your own videos. And I don't know if a lot of people remember back to it was 2005 is when I started uploading stuff, but it was just personal projects. I remember I edited some stuff in Movie Maker on the Windows computer, and I was like, oh, this is cool. The original homepage of YouTube was like, you would see every single person that uploaded something. So you'd upload something, you'd see your icon just slowly move across the screen as other users would upload stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And it wasn't until, I guess it was probably that was 2005, I think, is when YouTube first started, but it wasn't until 2011 that I was like, oh, I want to start uploading and maybe share some of the filmmaking stuff. Just talking back and thinking back to like Indie Mogul days and stuff. That was the big inspiration. Cause I was like, whoa, I could do this. I could like talk about stuff I actually kind of know about. So that's where it turned into like a show thing. But up until then, so the first couple of years, what is that? The math on that? 6 years almost? Yeah, 6 years of just me just randomly uploading like family videos and stuff. And once YouTube started implementing all their scanning software, all of those videos got strikes because they all had soundtracks on them. I didn't know, they were for my friends and stuff. So once I wanted to start doing it legit, I was like, oh, I got to delete these videos so I can monetize, because that was when they started to roll out being able to. I don't remember if there was criteria for having, I don't think they had a minimum of how many subscribers you had back then, but yeah, 2011 is when it all started. I wanted to call it, I didn't want to copy off of Indie Mogul's Backyard Effects. So I was like, I'm going to call it Quick Fix, but it'll be spelled FX. So if you watch some of my older videos, you'll hear me say Quick Fix, because in my mind, I thought, oh, it's a play on words. Because in my mind, I'm like, I want to do other videos that don't necessarily have to do with filmmaking. This is my idea of having a variety channel, which even back then, it was a bad idea. Like hyper focus, I think should have been. But yeah, so then I eventually just adjusted it and started doing it. I would say more frequently, but it still is, yeah, definitely months in between uploads.
All right, well then I guess we can move on to the next question, which is kind of a fun one because I'm sure a lot of people have been wondering this one because I myself wonder it from time to time. Where'd you come up with the name Knoptop for your channel?
Hmm. Hmm. Good question. Good question. Yeah, it's an interest. It's not. Well, I guess it's not interesting to me, but I'm sure it's interesting for some people because I've heard it a long time. The name came from a friend of mine in middle school because my last name's Knop, and my hair. Well, my hair's pretty long now, but back then it was long too, and so it was just like the play on words with Knop top, mop top, like a mop top. And he just called me that, and I never thought of it. It wasn't a nickname. Nobody ever called me it, but it was a nickname that I do remember. And then it was the figuring out, I got to come up with an email address. I got to come up with a username, and I got to come up with a YouTube channel name. And I was just struggling. I'm like, well, there's only one name that I remember back in middle school. My friend Eric, he called me Knoptop. I'll use that. And so it just kind of went to that. I kind of liked it. It was that fear of having my actual name. I think now more than ever, like this past 2 years, it seemed like all these vloggers and filmmakers, they want to use their real name. I just was like, I like the idea of like an online entity that's just really simple to remember. It's just more of like a brand more than a name. But yeah, so it went back childhood. But like I said, it wasn't, luckily, thank goodness, it wasn't a nickname that I got like called a lot or really ever. But I definitely am.
That's a good question right there. Have you ever been like, has anybody talked to you online or anything and called you Dave Knoptop?
Dave Knoptop. Yeah, luckily no. But what's funny, when I was in school, my one friend thought my last name had an F at the end because it's like that's a German spelling, Knopf. And so he
Right.
always called me that. And I thought he was just like joking with me. And it wasn't until we graduated when they called us up and the announcer called my name and he looked at me, he's like, "Your last name doesn't have an F on it? Knopf? It's not Knopf?" I'm like, "No, it's just Knopf. One P."
All right, so moving on, having discussed your name and everything, you've got a lot of videos. You've been posting for a while. You've been making a lot of great tutorials over these multiple years. What's one that probably sticks out the most to you? If you had to choose one video and said, this is my favorite, which would it be?
It's tough. It's tough. I know that it's actually changed over the years only because when I go back and rewatch some stuff that I'm like, "Ooh, this is a long, hard watch than it used to." But I think, and it's funny, and it wasn't that long ago that I posted it. The tutorial I did for, I can't remember the name of it. It was how to get cheap prop guns, I think. And man, it would probably help if I actually had the actual name of it. I change the name sometimes on some of those older videos. I'm going to actually look it up right now. So I remember I had to look it up here. It's cheap prop guns, and I sometimes I'll rename some of my old videos, so that's why I forgot what the name of it was. That's one of my favorites, and it's crazy because like, I mean, it doesn't have that many views for when I upload it, but it was a thing that I wanted to do like since I was like a kid. I just remember thinking like, I don't know if I watched it in a behind the scenes one time, but I'm like, and like, spoiler alert, in the tutorial it just shows how you can just have something, if it's going to be out of focus, it could be literally anything as long as it's in the shape of it. And I didn't really get to elaborate, of course. Like, I wish I could have gone in more depth, but I figure that people that know kind of get the idea, like, oh, I could do this with anything, because it could be handguns, it could be knives, it could be like a phone. If you don't want to have your character carrying an actual phone, they can just have like a cardboard one if you're only seeing glimpses of it. But I really liked that one. It was mostly just because I was glad I got it finished. It took me like almost 2 years.
So we've talked about your channel a good little bit right now. So let's get into a little bit of just you, for instance. What are like? Do you have any hobbies outside of filmmaking? I know you've done some work for the YouTube channel Flight Test. Are you like into RC airplanes yourself? Is that how you got involved with them, maybe, or just any outside hobbies from filmmaking?
Yeah, and that was an interesting, because I did it for work. I think I never took it on and like took it for fun. I worked at Flight Test, and they deal with aerial photography, stuff like that, all kinds of cool stuff. And I loved it was right at the introduction of drones too, like the way it is now, like with DJI. But I think because I was doing it for work, I just wanted to get away from it when I went home. But yeah, it's interesting when I think back, and actually it sort of overflows into some of the stuff I want to be doing more this year, which is some of the hobbies. And it's tough because I have hobbies and I'm like, why do I want to make everything a job? You know, like there's that weird thing about getting older where it's like, oh, if I can't make money doing this, I shouldn't bother doing it. I really love going to thrift stores and just there's that whole thing. I think as I get older, I just really value and have a nostalgia for stuff, not necessarily just toys, but because, you know, a lot of times I'll find old camera equipment and that's something I've carried over into the free time filmmaker stuff where I want to start talking more about. I have them all sitting here like these old point and shoot cameras that are pretty much nobody's using them anymore. But the nice thing is it's not your phone, so you can actually just keep your phone in your pocket or play music off of it and use these old cameras. But yeah, as far as hobbies, I was thinking about that a little bit, and I'm like, man, do I have hobbies? And I genuinely enjoy magic, like watching magic, not like the card game, but like magicians, and I'll just dabble with it. Never even something I've really ever tried to take on and do. I like to try to figure out if I can figure out the trick. It's almost like it makes sense where I think about like when I watch movies and stuff and I see a cool effect. I'm like, how did they do that? It's that same mentality. It's that engineering mindset of like, oh, this is so visually cool. And I know that's always carried over from since I was a kid. I was like, oh, I love magic, but it's way too hard and I don't want to practice that much. I'll do stuff with video because I can do jump cuts and make things disappear that way. And I don't have to learn cool, all the comics of the hand stuff and all that stuff. But that's one of the main things. And just recently, I was thinking I started getting into. I've always liked drawing and stuff like that, but I more recently just started doing watercolor painting. Just on the last thing on that hobbies stuff, I've been early retirement. I've been painting like crazy, just doing watercolors, and it's been nice because I've been painting cameras and stuff that I just like. I just love vintage cameras, and I think about them so much. I'm like, I'm just gonna paint some, and so that's been like super a great outlet for two reasons because videos and filmmaking and all that stuff there's such a slow turnaround on a lot of stuff that it's like I can paint something and be done with it in a half hour and be like, I actually have a thing that I can say is done, or at least it's like I'm seeing it almost finished compared to a project that takes weeks and weeks, to finish. But I made this. I just painted this today for you.
Oh,
This I I took it a little liberty in the design, but it says film world.
I can see
It's
that. That
it's
is
just a quick
awesome.
watercolor.
That is great.
So I'll send that out to you. But yeah.
That'd be awesome, yeah. So, as filmmakers, of course, we always love to talk gear. Gear is some of the most fun things that, as filmmakers, we can talk about. So, like, what are you rocking nowadays? I know you've got the G85. You've been playing with that a little bit, having some fun there. What's kind of like some of your most modern gear that you're playing with?
The Panasonic G85 is the most modern gear. It was at first I still had my Canon 60D because I'm like, that's where my personal gear, I sort of, it got outdated really quickly. For my actual job at the time, I was shooting on a GH4, which was at the time, it was the most current Panasonic camera and I loved it. And when I went home, I only shoot YouTube videos and stuff. But once I left there and started shooting more of my own thing, I was like, I need to get a little bit newer camera. So the G85 was the best compromise as far as like just priced high enough that it shoots 4K and does some of like the higher end stuff, but it's not totally out of my budget. And I was like, you know what? After I used it a few days, I was just playing around, just kind of getting used to it. But after a few days of it, I was like, I'm selling the Canon. I can't go back. Because I was shooting some two camera stuff. I had the Panasonic and then the Canon, and I really saw the side by side. And I was like, all right, I had a good run. So the Panasonic G85 is the newest thing, and it's got like dual stabilization. I don't know how familiar you are with it, a camera, but it features a lot of the newer stuff that the GH5 has. We were talking a little earlier, my Zoom H1. I know they just came out with a newer one just a few weeks ago, but the original one's still working perfectly fine for so many different audio recordings and stuff like that I do.
In fact,
Just
that's it
nice enough.
to your right, isn't it?
Yeah, this kind of hidden here. Little.
And so we're hearing the audio from you through that right now.
Yeah, I have that plugged in through the USB going into the computer, and it pretty cool. I know. It's there's always things. I would always love little options, more options, but I'm realizing it works. It does the job. It's I have it set up lately where I've been using it as a microphone. I used to run it as separate audio, and now I just do it where I run a line out. So I still use it as the mic, and I guess it uses its own little preamps, and I just turn down the levels of my camera, but still bring the line in. So that way I don't have to sync up anything. That's what I've been doing most recently, but that's just me just still experimenting.
All right, so this is going to be my last question for Dave before we move on to actual viewer questions. If we can, just be so blunt as to ask, what kind of things can we expect from Knoptop this year?
All right. I always, man, I always start the year out with a bunch of expectations and then it drops off really quick. I feel like I talk a lot about the stuff I want to do, but for a while, and this is where that whole internet thing is, where I'm like, quick effects. What is quick effects? Do I need to be showing people quick effects? Like, do we need more prop building video series? But so I left the year last year leaving it behind, but then going into this year, I came across some cool little things, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna bring back some quick effects, some cool little movie prop ideas and stuff like that. And that was something that is a big deal for me because I was gonna totally just kind of leave that whole. I call it like a series, but I guess that's what it is. There's like that weird thing where it keeps coming back to it. But um, I'm gonna definitely be kind of pushing through with some old school PVC shoulder rigs and some camera rigs, even though we live in a time now where everything is sort of available out there a lot cheaper than it was 7 years ago. I think there is a place for it. So I'm going to show some new tutorials and specifically kind of push a new era of PVC pipe camera rigs. So those are two big things that I'm looking forward to.
All right, well, then that does it for my personal questions to Dave Knopp. And I asked you guys on Twitter, and if you do not follow on Filmworld on Twitter, go to @FilmworldYT and follow us over there. But I asked you guys what kind of questions you might have for Dave. So I got a couple in here, and we are going to get them rolling. So the first one is from Katie Katie Did Bid. Sorry if I butchered that, but. The question is, has YouTube demonetization affected you?
It has not. Nothing that I've noticed, and I know I don't really push a lot of I have monetization turned on my videos, but I don't necessarily rely on it too much. I do have a Patreon out there and some other things I'm trying to make. If I have to make revenue, I try to make it with other areas. Earlier, we were talking about the gun videos that I have. I think they're just tutorials that are pretty general, but I could see one of those maybe down the road becoming an issue. But I've always sort of felt like I wanted to be I wanted to cover as much of an audience as possible. So most of my stuff, as far as I know, is like as general public, like anyone from any age can watch it. And I think that's helped keep me from getting demonetized during this whole crazy time.
All right, well then, excellent question at Katie Did Bid. Thank you for that. Now let's move on to one from another YouTuber who I've been a fan of for a little while now, Blend That Film. He asks, you always say, go make something at the end of your videos. Outside of your YouTube channel, what other videos do you make? Work stuff, personal projects? And that is actually all he had to say. So go ahead.
Good questions. Yeah, it is funny because it is that online world of like this mindset of like I want to share everything. Everybody, if I need to vlog about it that way. And I've never really been in that mindset. I do a lot of videos. I do like mostly just like family fun events. If there's a birthday or something, I'm usually the guy that's filming more than anybody. And depending on if my nephews and nieces are there, we'll make like a little movie out of the whole ordeal or a little fun little skit. But it's not stuff that's necessarily. I mean, maybe someone would like to watch it online, but it's mostly just fun for like family members to watch and little inside jokes like that. But I know that's just more for the fun side, and then like offline, just more of corporate stuff. And that's going into this year. That's something else. I'm like, maybe I need to just take a break, but that sort of facilitates like legitimate income or like income I can rely on, which is just editing and shooting interviews or like a business overview of something they need to roll out to their employees, stuff that would never be shown online or anything, but it's a nice high quality video that keeps me sort of in practice. I don't know why I keep doing this, maybe because I'm going crazy doing it. But like I know that it's really good because I want to constantly like keep making sure that my professional filmmaking or video making is like up to speed with everything. But at the same time, I noticed that I'm like, I want to do videos that are fun, and I'm trying to kind of morph those together somehow. So yeah, those are the two types of things I do. And I always like to, it's crazy. This last year and a half, I've been doing more stuff on my phone, like using apps specifically to edit videos and to try out little things that those live out on my Instagram at Knoptop, and on Free Time Filmmakers where I'll post those. And those little videos and little like picture edits and stuff like that, I post those a lot there. And I feel like that's offline, even though I'm doing it on my phone, then I'm uploading it somewhere. It's not pushed through my YouTube right now. So those are things that I'm just trying to just see what's out there. It's amazing. The stuff that you can do on your phone now. Like we were talking earlier, thinking back to the old days of plugging in 2 VCR tape cassette players and like dubbing them together and stuff, like the amount of work that would take compared to now, it's just like download an app.
And the amount of money.
Do it. Yeah. Huge. So yeah, that's some of the stuff I do offline. I'm still dealing with the media. That's why if you check out I think my bio, my Twitter says full-time media creator, free time filmmaker. So that's kind of my new motto.
Well, then that wraps it up for the questions. Is there anything else you might like to cover on while we're here, while we're talking to the audience?
Yeah. So the main thing right now going into 2018 is, I guess we're in 2018, aren't we? Oh man. I'm already about a month behind, but right now it's Free Time Filmmaker, and I currently just have it set up as an Instagram feed, and it's like my new passion project. Like, because I came to the conclusion, especially doing all this corporate stuff, I'm like, you know what? I need to just take the stress off and realize it's okay to be a filmmaker on the weekends, like a free time filmmaker. Like whenever I have free time, I'm usually reading articles about filmmaking, or I'm watching behind the scenes and stuff. And I'm like, I have a feeling a lot of people are doing this. Even if your dream is to be full-time, that's totally cool. In the meantime, your free time, a lot of times. But that's, so over there on Instagram, Free Time Filmmaker, it's just totally focused on, I would say DIY stuff and cool. I want to eventually get a lot more people. So if you guys have something that you want to share, send a DM over there and I'll share it. I'll post pictures and videos. That's what I love about Instagram. You can share photos and videos. And so it's like a condensed little micro album of, I'm hoping eventually as this year goes on, it'll be like a cool resource for just cool tips and tricks for filmmaking, which of course is what I'm trying to do on Knoptop YouTube. But this is 100% filmmaking tips and tricks. And we don't know what's going to happen with Knoptop on YouTube. Anything's possible. Anything can come your way.
Do you think maybe Free Time Filmmaker might transition over to a little bit of YouTube?
Yeah, and I think that's something it'll probably it might just have its own YouTube channel. That's what's tough. I don't want to get too confused with all of it, because that's the same stuff. My whole motto is go make something. But I know, like for me right now, like I'm doing the painting. I might show some of these on Knoptop, the little speed paint.
And I love that one. That's a beautiful, beautiful render.
And I filmed myself making this, so I'll send this to you. But like, I can post stuff like that. I just don't. I want to just keep it as focused on filmmaking as possible. So the Knoptop stuff is still going to be a little bit more of me just being like, hey, you know what? This is me. So if you like it, keep watching. Otherwise, go to Free Time Filmmaker if you want to watch nothing but filmmaking stuff. But
well, links to Free Time Filmmaker and Knoptop are in the description. You should definitely check them out. That really wraps up this interview. Thank you, Dave, for joining me on this interview and being able to talk to the YouTube community, to the Film World YouTube community specifically.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
All right, guys. So that wraps up this interview with Dave Knop from Knoptop. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let's get back to the rest of this Film World community episode. So there you have it, our interview with Dave Knop. I cannot thank Dave enough for joining me on that interview. It was an absolute blast to be able to talk to him. Been a fan of his channel for a while, and it was just incredible. Kind of a dream come true. Well, now it's time for our movie suggestion of the week, and then I am out of here. And I said out of here because it's Goodfellas. I finally just watched this movie. I know I'm a little late to the party, but it stars Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, and Robert De Niro, and of course it's done by Martin Scorsese. It is an absolutely incredible film. I had a blast from beginning to end. It was just great. So if you have not seen it yet, like I hadn't about 2-3 days ago, make sure that you go out and watch Goodfellas. Fantastic movie. Well, again, thanks to Dave Knop for joining me on that interview. It was an absolute blast. And thank you guys for joining me on this episode of Film World Community. Coming up this February 7th, I have a special video being released kind of as a thank you to you guys, and you'll see why as soon as it gets released. But yeah, that wraps up this episode of Film World Community. I know it was a lot different today, and I think that was a good thing because of that fantastic interview with Dave Knop. Again, thanks for joining me. Seriously, that was a blast. So yeah, get your questions in for next episode of Film World Community, and Premiere Prep is coming out very soon. So that does it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host, Michael Pendleton. Remember to live your life one frame at a time, and I'll catch you next time.